Pastor Israel here, and I'm just excited with what we're about to do this afternoon. We've got an interview with a thinker, a man of God, businessman, and we're just going to just spend some time just prodding his mind, getting some ideas, getting some insights, and just figuring out how to navigate the new normal life after the coronavirus. We're meant to start a bit earlier, but we're having just a few technical issues. But it's good to be here. Just like, share, send it out to your friends, and let's have an amazing time this afternoon. Let's have an amazing time this afternoon. I'm going to bring him I'm going to bring him to the forefront, and then I'm going to just introduce you all to him and just give you a little introduction into who he is. Pastor Solomon Kadewa is a very good friend of mine for many years. We first met in youth ministry. We were youth pastors in Harare. He was pastoring a youth group near our youth group, and we went there once to hear him preach. And I'll never forget the message he preached. He preached a message which blew our minds for life. You know, he was talking about one of King Solomon's sons and how he had to come from Lodabar. And we even back at our youth group, we created like a graffiti wall when he says, "I've got no legs, but I'm coming." You know, he preached such an amazing storm. And then he came to South Africa years later, way before we migrated. And when I moved to South Africa, he was like my first contact. And he literally helped me transition. And so his message was, there's an invitation by the king about Mephibosheth. You know, these pastors who find these underground people in the Bible, they don't just preach the usual David and Goliath and Joseph and, you know, Mary and Jesus. He found Mephibosheth, and it was a powerful message. So we're just going to be chatting for a few minutes as I bring him to the front. Pastor Solomon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Pastor Israel. Great to be with you. I hope you're keeping well in this COVID pandemic.
No, keeping well, you know. I think we're now in season 3.
Yes,
Season 1 was the first one, season 2 was the extension, season 3
now
is level 4, right?
exactly, exactly.
How have you been navigating each season of the lockdown?
Look, it's been pretty much the same, trying to make sense of this whole thing. But otherwise, it's more been family time, reading, recording, writing, that type of thing. But yeah, it's been apart from the outside, the external factors. You have to obviously keep your internal status at an equilibrium. You
Yes.
cannot and I guess that's where the even the concept of dominion that we like to preach, it's not necessarily dominating others out there, but dominion is when you can have your internal status not affected by the external status. You're dominating the
Jesus.
context. So I think that's pretty much what we've been doing, trying to keep ourselves afloat, obviously following the health regulations and all that, but on the whole, just maintaining your consistency. Whatever you've been doing before the lockdown, you do it differently in the lockdown.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of scriptures which you know, which come to my mind. You
Yeah.
know, in particular, Jeremiah 29 verse 11,
Yeah.
and even Proverbs 16 verse 9. when it
Yeah.
says, "We can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps."
Yes.
I'm sure you had many plans in January.
Exactly.
But the Lord definitely determines our steps.
Yeah.
Are there any plans which this COVID has sort of interrupted in your life?
Say again. Come again.
Are there any plans which this season of lockdown has interrupted, which you had planned?
Obviously, I mean, being restricted movement and all that, definitely. I mean, obviously, you'll have to do business differently. You have to do ministry differently. The thing is, the method changes, but whatever it is that one has planned to do should still be on the table. You just adjust and do it differently. One of the keys to be successful in whatever one does is being agile, being able to move in and out of situations with quick adjusting, instead of sitting and whining, and you quickly adjust and you move on, so that's pretty much what we've been doing. How do we adjust ourselves to the so-called, or we can call it the new normal, if you want to call it,
Yes, yes.
and still get things done, you know.
No, 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 that's absolutely fantastic. So the other day we're just talking about just over the phone, just about some of your observations in terms of first of all church
Yeah,
and business and theology approaching this COVID-19. Just share some of your insights, just based on first of all the church's response to this crisis.
yeah, yes. All right. The church's response it's been mixed signals, really. From what I've noticed, is that this COVID-19 exposed some of our theological weaknesses or strengths, depending on which side you're looking from.
Yes.
Um, there was a lot of discussion on, some into conspiracy theories, some, theological facts that, well, this is now the end time. This is prepare for the mark of the beast, prepare for, when they were talking about, that vaccination,
Yeah.
about Bill Gates and so on. I've heard all sorts. I've heard it all. So I started thinking deeply about it to say, if we as the church taught enough, in terms of, if we taught enough in terms of the end of human history, because there seemed to be a sentiment where people were now praying, praying against vaccines, that no, this is now the mark of the beast. But to me, it shows a deficiency in understanding the study of the end times, which is eschatology. So there's an intersection of eschatology and technology,
Mm.
and creates in itself, to some, an ethical dilemma, in terms of what do you believe about what's happening. And there's always this temptation also to want to interpret current events in the light of scripture. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Some of the things that we don't fully understand, we tend to want to add a spiritual dynamic to the facts. So I started seeing their gaps in terms of, vaccines are going to cause this and that is the mark. So I started looking at it from a very strong theological point of view,
Mm.
like eschatology. Eschatology is simply the study of the end of things, or the study of the end of human history. So us
So are
as
we,
ministers.
do you think we're in the last days based on your research?
Okay, based on my research, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna go there, but I just wanna give you
A build up.
I just wanna give you a bit of a background. So, what I've noticed is that there's been inconsistencies in terms of what we as the ministers, or what we as the church have taught, because first and foremost, there was this fear or this frenzy that if you get a vaccine, you've got the mark of the beast, therefore you're no longer a Christian.
Mhm.
I totally dismiss that, because salvation is not something that you can be cheated out of, by a vaccine or a chip or whatever,
Sure.
because if you look at the scriptures carefully, especially the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation is a book of symbols and types and imagery. So if you read the book of Revelation and take it literally, you're going to you're going to cross your wires. You're definitely going to get it wrong. Because Revelation, to understand Revelation, you must first of all unlock the book of Daniel, the second part of the book of Daniel, because what Daniel prophesied 450 years before the coming of Christ is what John writes in Revelation. And what John writes in Revelation, he's writing to the churches in Asia Minor, the seven churches in Asia Minor. So if he was only referring to the end of human history, that letter was of no use to them. It wouldn't, unless if you believe that Christ was coming in that era, which I don't believe that's what John was pointing to. So
Okay.
to answer your question, there are signs, yes, that we are in the end times, but not as how a lot of people believe it to be. By believing it to be, I'm talking about, when Revelation talks about the beast, for example,
Mhm.
there isn't going to be a beast coming from the seas, and it's not going to
Consider
be
it's not coming for us.
there is not going to be a specific, figure called the beast, because
Okay.
if you read closely in Revelation, John is actually referring to the events before 70 AD, which was the destruction of the temple.
Okay.
And if you look at that, he talks about it points to the Emperor Nero. Okay, the Emperor Nero, they rose as the beast, right? And the mark of the beast, if you read the writings of Flavius Josephus, the historian in Jesus' time, it says Nero actually built statues, okay? For one to enter in the marketplace, you needed to take incense that was burning from those statues. You take incense, you put it on your forehead and touch the statue and say, Nero is Lord. Then you enter the marketplace to sell or to buy goods. Okay, so that was the mark of the beast then. Okay,
Okay.
so it's pointing to events that happened before the destruction of the temple. So now, when we are in this time, when we live in the 21st century, and we're still looking at where is the mark of the beast, am I going to lose my salvation? I think
Mhm.
people need to just look back and be grounded a little bit more in the scripture to say, you know what, the Antichrist is not going to be a specific figure, but its symbol is it's a spirit. Anything that opposes the preaching of the gospel is the Antichrist.
Okay.
So this fear of I'm going to be cheated out of salvation should really be thrown out of the window. That's one um, gap that I saw. The confusion of can one lose their salvation, or must I look out for this so-called Antichrist or mark of the beast?
Okay.
Yeah,
No, that brings a lot of peace of mind
yeah,
um, in terms of where we are and what we need to do.
yeah,
You're also spending a lot of time online in ministry, just browsing different ministry dynamics. What is your take on how the church is managing online church in this time?
okay. Um, I think what I've seen so far has exposed some strengths and some weaknesses.
Okay.
Because what COVID has done, it has moved the world to a virtual world where we're not doing, I mean, platforms like these, where we're not interacting face to face on a daily basis,
Mm-hmm.
but it's become like a virtual world. That's
Mm-hmm.
what COVID 19 has done. Um, so in that, I've seen also it comes back also to the culture of the church. Okay, I think we spoke about it the other day telephonically when we were just discussing on culture, because how your culture would determine how you will move out of a storm, or how you will navigate yourself in the storm. Okay, if a church already had strong media presence, it's easy to make that adjustment into the online platform. But what
Yes.
I've also noticed is that on an online platform, preaching face to face and online platform, those are completely two different things.
Okay.
So one needs to show that we are together in this. We all at home. We all affected by what's affecting everyone out there. So,
Yes.
because sometimes communication is not so much what you say, but it's what people see and how you empathize.
Yes.
So I think the church at this point in time, there needs to be a stripping down of some sort in terms of how we present the gospel, to make it more relatable. You're not detached from what everyone is going through. So it must be like a family setting, a home setting, a more teaching kind of presentation, because again, also in this crisis, we don't only need the word. You get what I'm saying? By not only the word, I'll qualify it. What I'm saying is our messages must be informative, must be spiritually enriching, but it must be also be able to dispel some of the myths. For example, what we just talked about this end time conspiracy theories, if you want to call it that. So we're finding ourselves having to do more of research and be well informed, be equipped with, because people also need us to be able to make sense of even the current events, what they're consuming in the news, what they're consuming from various outlets. We need to package that and
Mm-hmm.
be able to interpret it, or be able to encourage from the scriptures, so that when one is off the broadcast, they have something that to do. There's a practical something that they can do, and not only that, they feel uplifted, they feel informed, they feel educated, and that's our role in this time.
Okay. And then in terms of business, let's start off with the economy of South Africa. What are you
Yeah.
seeing in terms of, for example, um, if first question would be, if you were in the president's room, what advice would you give him? And then after this crisis, what businesses do you predict are going to suffer, or which ones are going to rise?
Yeah. All right. Business wise, I mean, okay, let's start with the economy, for example. We This coronavirus found us. By us, I'm talking about South Africa. It found us in a recession. It found us on the cusp of a downgrade. So the economy was already on its knees to a certain extent, you know. And then came the coronavirus. Then came the stimulus package, the 500 billion stimulus package. Obviously, that money is come from somewhere. The basic principles, that money has come from somewhere, and it has to be repaid. I mean, that's just a fact. It has
Yes.
to be repaid. So the slicing of that 500 billion would determine what happens post the crisis. Okay, if you put it more towards stimulating business, then there'll be more income to tax and to put back in the kitty.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but what I've also noticed that yes, there is need for social assistance, the social grants and things like that. We will talk about that on a little bit later. But in terms of the if I was in the president's shoes right now, I would balance the economics and the health situation, because a sustained lockdown it's not going to do the economy any favors. But at the same time, one has to look at the health concerns out there. So there's a dynamic tension between the health aspect and the economy aspect. I would think to accelerate a little bit on the economy, so that we can get the country back running, or with the whatever the precautions,
Yeah.
with all the necessary health precautions. It's not a careless reopening, but it's calculated as they have done it. But I would advocate more towards, let's get more businesses operating, because
Yes.
if we get more businesses operating, we have a greater chance of, because this virus, we don't know how long this is going to be.
Yep.
Some scientists are predicting that it's going to last up to 2 years, 24 months. So, can we afford a 24-month lockdown? No. So, either way, at some stage, business has to carry on. At some stage, business has to carry on. So, I would say, the balancing of that dynamic is of paramount importance at this stage. The sooner, the better for me.
And then, I mean, we're seeing already so many news reports. Airlines are down.
Yeah,
I mean, Virgin Atlantic has shut down 3,000 jobs. The Gatwick route, they're shutting it down.
yeah,
Uh, you've got Com Air
yeah,
Business Rescue yesterday. You've
yeah,
got certain magazine companies shutting down. There won't be Bona magazine anymore.
yeah.
Uh, and various other magazine outlets, newspaper outlets as well are shutting down. What businesses do you see after this corona are done or are going to suffer?
Okay. Just looking at it, the hospitality industry, it's going to take a long time for a bounce back. Obviously, because that's one is you get a lot of traffic in and out. I see the hospitality industry taking a long time to come back. I also see, training and education. By training and education, I'm talking about more of the, corporate training and things like that. Because everything now has moved to a virtual world.
Okay.
So if one is in like a training business, it would be the ideal time now to start packaging around, virtual training as to face to face, because I see a gap of the closing of the gap in terms of where people will not be gathering anymore for training, but rather it will be virtual. But in it also opens opportunities, because for training you are limited to geographical location if you're going into one company. But if you're now in virtual world, you can train in 50 countries and never having to leave your home. So it depends with the kind of content that one has, and how marketable the content is. So I see a downside to the training, corporate training. I see a downside, but in that I also see opportunity, in terms of being able a wider reach. So
I
one
was,
has to now
talking to,
start to think around that.
I was talking to a friend of mine in the training industry. He was saying that the biggest challenge now is creating systems of payment.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to be getting money from Australia, China,
Yes. Yes.
United States, Nigeria, you can't just
That's
say
it.
Capitec account is. You got to have PayPal. You got to have
Yes.
um,
Yes.
various avenues.
Exactly.
payment.
Yeah.
Then, which other businesses do you see coming out badly after this?
Right. So I've talked about the hospitality. I've talked about the training business. Um, there are quite a number of them that I'm trying to just figure out, the way to navigate out of this virus will be quite bruised. A lot of I think the automotive industry, the
Hey,
automotive industry has already been hard hit because obviously money is going to be tight. People are going to recover. It's going to take like 6 to 8 months. So the automotive industry, that like the new car sales. The other time I was looking, they say in April, it was down 97%. New car sales. So it's down 97%. So I see that sustained for quite a long time. So the automotive industry, it's that one is going to be quite a mission. I also see even the aviation industry, not having done business for this protracted period. And we know the overheads are quite high in that type of business. I'm not an aviation
okay.
expert, but
On that note, on that note, aviation industry is in trouble. We as South Africa want to put more money in there, restructure SAA. What do you think about
sell the airline, sell it, shut it down, shut it down, shut it down. That one, there's not two ways about it. There's been a lot of bailout after bailout after bailout. Shut the airline down, and let's reprioritize those resources to something that can actually generate, money for the economy. I'm a firm believer. I don't know the politics around it, but just from a logic perspective, um, yeah, shut it down. Short and sweet answer. Shut it down.
So I'll pray for wisdom to find our leaders. And then just a closing question.
Yeah.
Um, Looking after COVID, what are some of the trends you see coming, whether it's ministry, whether it's business, family, and locally and globally?
Okay. Um, Business. Anything that is to do with, as I'm saying, or online business is going to be on an all-time high.
Yes.
Anything done online is going to be on all-time high. I also see, like companies like Take a Lot, that type of thing, where you buy online, deliveries are done to the doorstep. It's going to be the norm for quite some time. Um, um, and what else did you say? The on the family side?
I think just on that note, I think an opportunity is going to arise in people uh, Uber figuring out strategies to Uberify businesses.
Yeah, yeah,
How to approach, for example, like a Checkers, they've started grocery deliveries. And I think
yeah,
one of the great business opportunities is going to be how people can look at any business in any field and figure
yeah.
out how to uh, digitize it, Uberify it.
Yes,
You've got those guys, Sweep South, Aisha Pando, the company
yeah,
she started, where it's like the Uber of nanny. You have an
yes,
app,
yes,
boom. So I
yes,
think that's going to be a major opportunity of how to Uberify.
yeah,
I think even for us as in the black community, how to Uberify a funeral, where you find
yeah,
the coffin is delivered, the body digitally, because that's what we're coming to. And then out there
yeah,
FaceTime for all the guests to see it live or something. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Look, the digital world, definitely. That's where much of the opportunity is going to be. Anything that is on a digital platform, it's going to fly. Yeah, and also, I mean, development of new apps that allows us to do things better from home. And I see also the working from home phenomenon. It's not. It's here to stay.
Are
You
they?
know, yeah, the working from home situation, how to make the most of it. I think we should do a talk later,
Yes.
on successfully working from home. The dynamics around that. I think that is here to stay. We're also going to see, I think, your open plan offices going to be a thing of the past, I think. Because sometimes you've got like, people crammed in one open plan office. I think we're going to see a bit of a shift on that, based on this, COVID situation that we've been. Families, personally, for me, it's been a great time just being around my kids, the wife. It's been a great time of connecting, reconnecting. We've devised methods of, playing games, watching Netflix together, discussing, and you learn more out of, I mean, about your kids, the more time you spend time with them.
I
So
found on my iPad, I got a Monopoly app,
yeah,
whole board game.
yeah,
So I was like, wow, now we can just be playing.
yes,
I've been
yes.
beating my wife badly. So just keep playing.
I hope
She's
you
here
don't
to
keep
defeat me.
beating
She's here to
it.
defeat me.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's really been a great time, of just connection, and getting to know them in a more intimate way.
Yes.
But homeschooling has shown us flames. Homeschooling, you see how much of a mission that is, so just being around them in that homeschooling thing, it's yeah, it's been challenging, in the sense that you have to be, the supervisor. You have to, manage their time, the time they wake up, the time they take breaks. They're not on the Xbox, PS4 for too long. At the same time, you want to make it easy for them. So yeah, the homeschooling situation has revealed quite a lot in terms of, how sometimes we like to diss teachers, but they are worth their salt.
No, the homeschooling thing is very hard.
Yeah, that's that.
I am praying that this schools open.
Yeah.
Open. Those prayers used to be all night. Open heaven. I'm praying open
Open.
school. Open.
You pray until the voice is gone.
Yeah. So when do you think churches will be allowed to meet? As in, where are we on this timeline?
Look, it's very difficult to predict, but my guess is, these levels. I think we are going to just move quite, quickly. I think from level 4 to level 3, because look, the infections are not abating.
Okay.
Um, the good thing is, I think people are well informed now. In terms, there've been a fair enough education on, the behavior of the virus and how we ought to. I mean, we're now washing our hands every so
Yes.
often, mask and all those things. So I think because there's been fair amount of education that has happened, the public is aware. Uh, I don't see us, having this prolonged. I mean, it depends on what the health experts say, but from my side, I think we've got enough information now for us to go out there and be responsible.
Yes.
So I
I'm
think
seeing it. Like
also,
when I go to the mall or to the supermarket, there's
yes,
such a shift. Like I was in Sandton City. I
yeah,
mean, everybody was masked.
yeah,
Everybody. The
yes,
guards didn't have
yeah,
firearms. They had big sanitizers.
yes.
And if you walk past the guard, he's sanitizing you. Every store
Exactly.
there's a sanitizer.
Exactly.
So um, I think psychologically we are understanding that we have to take personal responsibility for our
Yes,
safety when we are out.
yes, yes, yes. Yeah, because I mean, in terms of the timeline, I would like to think. I mean, this is not, from a health perspective. I'm not a health expert, but I think we in May now, round about July, end of July, maybe we should be able to go back to church. As I said, there has been enough information out there. And I think one of the things also that causes these lockdowns to be protracted, it's when you also have a government that doesn't trust fully their citizenry, and
Yes.
vice versa. If you look at Sweden, for example, they did not have a lockdown, and their numbers are not through the roof, because their culture there is that of there's a healthy relationship between the government and its people, the people to the government. So I think some of these things that we end up in now, prolonged lockdowns and so on, even to our own detriment, is that issue where there is a trust deficit between the government and the citizenry. But I think there's been enough education out there, really, that any reasonable, normal person would go out there and take precaution. I don't think anyone who's in their right mind right now would dismiss Corona as a hoax. It's real.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. Thank you so much for this time you've given us.
Wow.
Uh,
This was.
Definitely gonna bring you on again,
Yeah.
particularly on the business side,
Yeah.
um, and how to work from home,
Yeah.
and what other businesses people can do
Sure.
outside of this store.
Yeah.
No, but thank you so much. I wish you the best
Thank you so much for the
in
time.
lockdown.
We should do it again.
Lockdown. Pray for SAA.
Yeah. And now I'll pray that it's shut down.
Okay, man. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.